Hello and welcome to Moneylife News and Views. I'm Debashis Basu. We've just come across an absolutely startling investigative story in Al Jazeera about an Indian public sector bank called Bank of Baroda. Bank of Baroda had launched their app sometime in late 2021 called Bob World. By the time it was about 6 months or so, there were not too many registrations in the app. So to boost registrations, Bank of Baroda came up with a very ingenious solution and a very unsafe one for us customers. What Bob officials did was take a list of Bank of Baroda customers list accounts where registrations had not happened. They had not downloaded the app, they had not installed it. They then started to register all of these accounts in the apps. How would they do it if there are no if the actual users are not doing it through their mobile number? They just put any random mobile number from anybody, including their staff, and they use them to boost their registrations. Each official apparently had given a target of about 150 registrations, and numbers were running really low. So they took advantage of this kind of a system that they created, an absolute fakery, and they managed to boost registration. This is as per the story in Al Jazeera. Bank of Baroda, of course, separately in another article has denied that they have anything done like this. In many cases, a single mobile number was linked to more than 100 such registrations. Now, Bank of Baroda's own policy says that you cannot link one number to more than 8 people, and all of these 8 people have to be part of the family. Now, these kind of fake registrations in lakhs, may shock most people, but this is very common in digital world. Fake news, fake hits on websites claiming to have millions of hits, boasting of bogus app downloads, fake registrations are very common. And remember that in 2021, a Japanese investment giant SoftBank had invested $170 million in a social media app called IRL, valuing it at more than 1.17 billion. It turns out that 95% of those claimed 20 million users were fake, and this company is now closed, and the accounts had to be, and the money had to be written off. Now, when employees of India's second largest public sector bank, with a market valuation of more than 100,000 crore, 1 lakh crore market valuation, they participate in fake app registrations to meet steep targets, it is not only reprehensible, but there are bigger implications. For instance, customers of banks and financial services are always unsafe, and this makes them even more unsafe. Now, according to me, the episode raises 3 important issues. First, of course, is safety of customers, which I talked about. Now, if a fake number can be inserted from the back end to generate bogus registrations for a genuine bank customer, it's obvious that the safety gets compromised. According to Al Jazeera, internal mails from BOB, which they have published, have actually acknowledged that tens of thousands of accounts at the bank were at risk since they were linked to mobile numbers of complete strangers. One internal email shows that in Bhopal zone, close to 1,300 mobile numbers were tied to anywhere from 30 to 100 bank accounts, putting 62,000 bank customers at risk in just one zone. That is, on an average, 47 accounts linked to a single mobile number. Now, this is a very serious breach of fiduciary responsibility and assumes significance in the light of widespread digital fraud that we read about every day in the newspapers. Point number 2, what about the integrity of the bankers? A bank is supposed to be a safe place. You keep your money in trust. Now, the genesis of the problem, remember, is the steep targets. Targets create bad incentives. We know what targets do when bankers try to sell you insurance, when bankers try to encourage you to take your money out of the FD of the bank itself and put your money in life insurance products. It only leads to enormous amount of mis-selling and fraud. Now, apart from such bad incentives, there is another very serious implication, which is, in some cases, not very widespread, but in some cases, the collusion of bank officials internally where they compromise your system and probably are part of the fraud. I'll give you a very startling story of somebody called Dr. Ajay Sood, who was an NRI settled in the US, this is about 4 or 5 years ago. He found 1.33 crore money which he had kept for his mother withdrawn from his account in Bank of India, and that too when the original checks were with him. So the checks were with him, but the money is gone. His registered mobile number was changed and an other number which does not belong to him was added to the account. Now, who could do this? This simply could not have happened without the involvement of bank insiders. It's very clear that the bank officials are involved because there was a fraudulent communication with the bank in Ajay Sood's name via a non-registered email before a bank official approved the transfer of funds, he told us. He had kept this large sum in the bank for his mother, who lived in India. Now, consider how BOB has made tens of thousands of people extremely vulnerable. BOB official told Al Jazeera that many staffers had inserted their own mobile numbers with customer accounts. Okay. Now, he also said that the bank staff often does this if customers do not have registered numbers in order to fulfill mandates. Now, what are the implications? Digital transactions, as we know, are all driven by one-time passwords. Now, when you trigger a one-time password, the password goes to the mobile number of the bank official, and you can see what the implications are, how easy it is for you to be defrauded by somebody from the inside. In fact, an internal email of Bank of Baroda, which Al Jazeera has quoted, and I read it out for you. They said it's a fraud-prone area, and if any fraud happens, the officials on the branch as well as the regions will be held responsible. This is the bank's own acknowledgement. The third point that I wanted to mention, which is implied from all of these issues, is that if something happens to you, you can run from pillar to post, but you may not get justice. This is the fate of all banks, of all customers of banks and financial services, whether you're buying insurance, whether you're buying any banking services or any other services. They have a lock on you, and the system of grievance redress is totally loaded against you. And there's been very slow change in the process over the years, but still it is totally against you. They treat you like you are the one who has done something wrong. Now, in financial services, as also some would say even in healthcare services, the service provider is the king. You go to a hospital, they have control over you. You go to a bank, the banker has your money, right? The consumer is at their mercy. In case of a bank fraud, the typical response of the bank is to deny any responsibility and blame the customer. In Dr. Sood's case, he ran from pillar to post, calling and speaking to several bank officials and even Reserve Bank of India. Nothing happened. His calls and emails to the then chairman and managing director, nodal officer, assistant general manager at Chandigarh did not have any response. RBI's Consumer Education and Protection Department also never bothered to respond to him. Dr. Sood finally got his money back after our intervention. But the fight for justice is a torturous process of escalation to the internal and external banking ombudsman, which requires enormous effort, time, patience, and is, in the end, largely ineffective. Now, Bank of Baroda is apparently working on a cleanup, but this is not enough. The regulator is also investigating the case, but what will come of it? Culpability of banks, especially in mis-selling, is hard to pin down. Culpability of banks, especially in mis-selling, is very, very hard to pin down. When proven, monetary penalty is never high enough and is never personal. So nobody is deterred. Okay? And that alone, unless you pin the blame on somebody and you can really make it difficult, make it really hurtful for that person or for the organization, it's only then that they'll ensure that from internally that something like this is not repeated. But this is not done, so there is no deterrence. Fraud and malpractices will easily escalate, and many customers may find their bank accounts cleaned out. RBI is fully aware of mis-selling by banks and digital fraud by staff, but is moving at a glacial speed. There's just no urgency. We as customers have to be conscious and careful to sidestep numerous different types of frauds made possible under a mindless shift to a digital ecosystem without adequate customer safety and protection. If you heard what you liked, please do subscribe and do share. Thanks for watching.